next week, and it's a nice opportunity, and the press, of course, is welcome to join us as well. We do this, part of our charter as a club is to try and promote good government in our community, so this is really grassroots government, and we're very grateful that all of you are here today to participate in that fashion. We're also very grateful to our candidates for going forward. We have a little alteration tonight from what we've done in the past. We only have one candidate here from the town. We wanted to have representation for the town of Lodi as well as for our county board races, but we work with what we have, and so we're very pleased tonight to introduce to you our candidates. Nick Everly is seeking a position. This is for the third position in the town of Lodi. The other candidates were invited. They were not able to attend. Bill File, Jim Hellimer, and Janet Klingman. So we do have two of our county board candidates. To Nick's left is Tess Carr, and to Tess's left is Tom Dunn. So we would like to welcome you here today. Our format is quite simple, and it's really audience driven, so your participation is very important here. Candidates will have 2 minutes to make opening statements, and then we will commence the question and answer. All the questions come from the audience members. I'll just, please raise your hand, I'll recognize you, and then we ask you to identify yourself. And please be direct with your questions. Too many times people want to make statements about whatever they care to make. We really want to hear from the candidates, so please try and fashion your questions directly toward them. And without any further ado then, Nick, would you please begin with your 2-minute opening statement?
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation. Never done this before, so really great at this. I didn't even know I had 2 minutes to speak. So I'm running for town board. I was kind of appointed about a year ago now, a little less, since Steve Nader moved up to the town chairman, and then I applied for the open position, and they picked me out of my application. So I tried that, and I've learned so much in that short amount of time. I feel like there's so much more obviously to learn, and going forward with this, learning about the people that are around in the community who are involved, and I really feel like hopefully younger people do get more involved. I'm always up and open for anything. If anybody has suggestions, I always try to weigh things out very fair and evenly. So I know I'm not gonna hit my 2 minutes, but I really don't have much more else to say. If there's any people that have any ideas or suggestions, please feel free to always reach out. My number's been the same number for years, so I think that's it.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Tess?
Good listening is good.
It's actually 90 seconds for opening statements, not.
I'm Tess Carr, and I never have a loss of things to say. I'm so excited to be running again for the District 25 seat. I've knocked on almost every door in my district lately, and I've had so many wonderful conversations. And door knocking has been a reminder of the double privilege of serving on the county board. First, that I get to see all the good government happening and have the enjoyment of seeing that happen. The county board is nonpartisan, and all county board supervisors who are interested in public service, which is most of us, do a lot of listening and learning and working together. We all bring different backgrounds. I bring a legal perspective. There are farmers on the board, retired police officers, law enforcement, and of course we have different political orientations. And the beautiful thing is that on the county board, our differences are strengths. We work together to make the most reasonable decisions for the public, and this is incredibly rewarding. It's democratic government the way we all want it to be. The second privilege of being on the county board is that I have the honor of serving my beautiful community. I enjoy getting phone calls and emails from my neighbors asking for help with something. I enjoyed responding successfully to resident calls for maintaining library funding and drug and alcohol court grant funding, and I enjoyed every minute I've put into supporting grant applications for better broadband coverage, 2 of which were just approved last week. I feel lucky to be a part of good government and lucky to live in this community, and I hope to have the opportunity to continue to serve my neighbors in District 25.
Thank you, Tess. Tom?
Hi everyone, my name's Tom Dunn. I'm running for the open seat in District 26. I live in the town of Lodi, just a little east of Lodi on Highway J. The reason I'm running is because not only do I want to serve the people of the 26th district, Columbia County is a really special place to me. My family, both sides of my family, my father and my mother's sides, first came to Columbia County in the 1850s. And there have been members of my family here that entire time. And for me, when I was a kid, my childhood was Columbia County. My grandma's in Portage, my aunt and uncle's farm in Caledonia. The height of my summer was the Columbia County Fair. So Columbia County is a special place to me. I care about the present. I care about the county delivering a service efficiently and effectively to what you all expect. But I also want to be a part of helping to lead the county into the future and weighing the idea of the balance that I think is important to the citizens of Columbia County between sort of rural, traditional character of this county, but also looking at the needs of growing urban areas, particularly Portage, and the need for economic development as well. So that's a little bit about me. I'm glad to see you all tonight. Look forward to doing my best to answer your questions. But I'm not on the board yet, but I will do my best. So.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So that concludes the opening statements, and now we'll commence the question and answer segment. So we will entertain your questions. The first question directed to Tess Carr. Please raise your hand and identify yourself. Yes, sir.
What do you hope, Tess, in the next term?
And could you identify yourself?
Mike Keller,
Thank you,
from
Mike.
Lodi, town of Lodi.
Yes, sir.
What do you hope to accomplish in your next term if you're elected?
What I'd like to do in the next term is more of what I've been able to bring in this term, which is what I consider my strengths to be balance and fairness. When any issue arises before the county board, I think we have a responsibility to find out as much as we can about it without coming at it with a preset agenda or letting our opinions rule the final decision. I think that we need to bring to that fact-finding, the fairness of listening to all sides and trying to find a solution that benefits as many people as possible. It can seem, for example, that there are zero-sum outcomes which can actually benefit more parties than initially seem. And an open mind. I think that those are the qualities that I bring. Specifically in terms of projects, I'd like to continue to expand broadband throughout the county. I think that economically, our county will be left behind if our farmers, small businesses, telecommuters, and remote learning students do not have the advantages of the rest of the world in the 21st century. So that's my biggest project on the county board specifically.
Thanks, Tess. Tom?
As I've looked at, and I've tried to do research, reading county annual reports, meeting minutes of the county board, that kind of thing. One of the things that strikes me would be very important, and I'd like to concentrate on, is the county's ability to hire and keep qualified employees all across departments in the county. All the different, many of the different departmental reports that I've read lamenting the ability to keep staff, being short-staffed. I'd like to try to attack that problem. Another thing that interests me is maintenance of roads and how the county, I know the county's behind in its road maintenance. I'd like to look at ways that we could work on that problem and try to attack the problem where we're, say, sealing roads before they get to the point where we need to resurface and rebuild, to try to get away from the most expensive solutions to things. So those are at least two things off the top of my head I can think of that would be of interest to me.
Nick?
For roads or moving?
The question was concerning what you would like to accomplish in your next term in office, sir.
As the town board, I feel like has really switched its gears from what I heard. It was very divided before, and there wasn't things that got accomplished very well. I feel like this board that I'm currently on is doing very well, moving things forward, accomplishing goals that should have been done a long time ago. The Wagner Pond is one of the things that should have been dredged a long time, and I feel as moving forward, the Hillenbrand thing is a big issue that is hopefully behind us, more or less. And just honestly moving the town forward. The town is where we live, and I like to make sure it's growing the more appropriate way, I guess.
Thank you, Nick. The next question directed first to Tom Dunn.
Bueller? Sorry. Here's your opportunity.
Did I fail to mention that this is supposed to be
Audience
audience
participation.
Yes.
What's your background?
And you identify yourself, please.
Connie Sears, Tamalota.
Thank you, Connie.
Sure. I've worked for over 30 years, it's getting close to 35 years in corporate communications, public relations. I started with the Credit Union National Association in Madison. I worked with Q Mutual Group, now TrueStage. I worked for American Family Insurance, and now I work for National Guardian Life. In most of those roles, something I think that can be used in this setting is that I've supported generally, leaders and boards of directors. I'm very used to how those kinds of relationships operate. I'm used to seeing budgets, how budgets are done. But I think the most important thing is I've got 30 years of watching the politics and the relationships that go on in these type of environments. And I think one of the things I could bring to the board, and I'm very interested to bring to the board, is a spirit of collaboration, of working together, of coming to answers that maybe I'm not getting 100% of what I want, you're not getting 100% of what you want, but we're getting something that everybody can live with.
Thank you.
Nick?
My background, I work for the state of Wisconsin as a waste measures and petroleum inspector.
Nick, could you speak up just a
I
little
apologize,
louder?
sure can. I'm a waste measures and petroleum inspector. I work for the state. I have a territory where I take care of and go through local businesses and businesses all around the state, mostly gas station, but also big box stores. So what we do is we regulate them. We have a handbook and we go through and tell them, or go through and make sure the laws that they're following are appropriate. And it's basically about even level playing field for all businesses, and I think that correlates obviously with the government, because a local government size, you want to have everybody have an equal share in the township. It's their life, their home, and I feel like that you should be a part of that, I guess, and that's what I have.
Yes.
The background that I bring to this, well, I have a background in policy and state government. When I worked for the state of Alaska as a project manager for environmental contamination cleanup. Prior to that, I was an environmental scientist working for a private company, Jacobs Engineering. After that, I went to law school and began to work for a law firm that my primary job within the law firm was in their environmental section. So I advised our mostly energy clients on staying in compliance with the law. And I think this is something I bring to the county board. We've seen issues come before the county board that would have gotten us into legal trouble had we followed the recommendation of some of the other county board supervisors. Whereas when you look at the advice of your legal counsel, and because I know that we would be risking so many taxpayer dollars to get into unavoidable and unnecessary lawsuits, and that's my background to prevent that from happening for my clients. I consider the taxpayers of Columbia County to be my clients, and that's very important to me to stay in compliance. So I think my legal background is a strength there.
The next question directed initially to Nick Everly.
I'll ask another question.
Connie, you're on.
So the building of the fire department, where do you stand on passing a resolution so everybody can vote on spending those dollars? Or if that's something that you think should just be decided by the town and the city without including the public?
Well, first you should be including the public. I heard it's in the very, very beginning stages of it. They are looking for spots, and I know there's a lot of funding that the government can get from other forms of the government. And, it definitely should be a decision because it's all gonna be paid by, obviously, the taxpayers, so taxpayers are gonna pay for it, it's gonna benefit them. And I think getting a new fire department probably would be a good situation for how old the current one is.
So you would support a referendum?
So I would, yes.
Tess, care to comment on that?
Yeah, this is more of a town issue than a county issue. I understand that this is a topic of discussion at the town level. I wasn't able to make it to the town meeting. I know it was on the agenda on Tuesday, but I had a conflict. I tried to make it to all the town meetings, but I couldn't make it to this one. I do think it would be beneficial if we could have the fire department closer to the town of Lodi and West Point, which is one of its clients, you know, two of its clients, so that makes sense to me. And I guess in general, my philosophy is if the departments think they need something, think long and hard about listening to what they think they need. Because if the fire response team is telling us here in Lodi that this is something we need, they're the experts. And unless I have compelling evidence, otherwise I listen to the staff and the department leaders, because they're the ones who we've hired for their skill, although of course these are volunteers not hired, but they have, obviously they have the skills and they have the institutional history and background to know more than I do. I can't know that much about everything.
I guess I would lean towards thinking that we were elected to make these kinds of decisions. And I agree with Tess. It seems to me that we brought on experts in these fields to provide us with the appropriate advice. And if they present the compelling evidence and the case that this needs to happen, I don't think it requires the expense necessarily of a referendum to make that decision. I think that for most instances, we could make that decision at whether it's the town board or the county board. So that's what I would think.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next question directed first to Tess Carr. Yes, sir.
Travis Anderson, given the numerous standing rule violations that have occurred at the county level over the past 2 years, and that there's been numerous complaints that have gone unaddressed by citizens, both making public comments at the board meetings and submitting formal written complaints that have largely gone ignored, would you support a citizen-led ethics committee if you are elected?
I would not support a citizen-led ethics committee. I've already voted against that. I think our corporation counsel advises us adequately, and when they have a potential conflict or when they're the subject of the ethics question at hand, they defer to outside counsel, and that's appropriate. I think a citizen-led ethics committee is something that would create unforeseen problems, and that the system is, there's definitely debate as to the degree and severity and number of any violations that may or may not have occurred.
Tom?
Sure. I will admit to you, I'm not that aware of the issue you're talking about. I would think that there's, from my business experience, I guess I would call it an internal audit function that would cover the board and would be looking at these types of complaints and issues from citizens and being able to recognize the level of merit that's there to some of these issues and complaints. I guess my initial reaction would be, I'd be a little nervous about a committee that's conducting investigations into people. Because I just think there's unforeseen circumstances that could happen with something like that. But I do think that citizens petitioning the board and letting them know that they're not satisfied with what they see as violations or ethics problems, that pressure should be taken seriously by the board, and the board should be working with its, for like I said, lack of a better term, internal audit function to try to resolve these situations and publicly resolve them with transparency.
Nick?
Since this is pretty, sounds like a county more issue as you're supporting a lot of ethics committee that you would wanna do, it doesn't sound like that would be beneficial, on the aspect of they're elected officials, we choose who we elect more or less. And I guess if we don't care for them, we should probably look on voting for other people. For them, I'm not sure about the whole thing at all, but if there's arguing and inappropriate comments, then I really hope that they'd hold themselves to a higher standard as being a political official.
Thank you, Nick. Next question directed first to Tom Dunn.
I'll go. Craig Easy, Town of Lodi. So without purpose, without priorities in our life, we tend to wander around aimlessly and not have any sort of direction or anything. So if 2 years from now you're sitting in the same spot as an incumbent and running again, you could look back 2 years from now, what is the number one thing that you would say that you accomplished in your role?
Well, I go back to my answer earlier. I'd like to be able to come back and tell people that we took some effective action to help the county with its employment retention and employee satisfaction. I'd like to be able to tell you some concrete accomplishments there. I'd also like to be able to come back and tell you, again, my other issue about roads, I'd like to be able to, pardon the pun, concretely tell you that we made some progress and that we've improved those situations. There's those two things that are important to me. But also, I'm interested too in potential economic development in this county. I'd like to talk, maybe when we get a chance a little bit later, about some of the things that are going on in this county that I think we can take some advantage of when we're looking at economic development. I'd like to be able to report on something like that to you too, that we took specific actions and we have some irons in the fire or something like that to help improve the economic prosperity.
Nick?
So I look back at goals, as I'm pretty new at this, I started with the town, like I said, about 9 months ago. And I feel like the town board, like I said, has been very proactive in working on getting things done. And I feel like the town board before this was very disorganized. The town alone was disorganized. And we've really, I feel like as a group, kind of came together and worked on breaking apart our township into territories so each supervisor can work on each spot in the town. And what we're trying to do is organize the town. What we have for roads, how are the roads? What is the culvert situation? Signs, everything along those lines. We don't really know all that information. And I don't know how that hasn't really been a priority, but as moving forward, I'd like to keep working on that. On keeping the town roads obviously are extremely important. Lighting, waterways, all these different situations would be a great thing to move forward with.
In the next 2 years, what I would like to have accomplished, I think Tom hit the nail on the head with staff hiring and retention. We're in a very competitive workforce right now, and we can't offer our employees what the private sector can. Yet we need good employees, because what the county does is deliver public services. That's all we do. We're a service delivery unit. And therefore, we have to offer them whatever we can. We have to treat them with respect. We have to provide safe and positive workplaces for them. We have to give them good benefits and retirement packages. And we have to give them a comparable salary whenever we can. And I'm pleased that we were able to give all of our staff an across-the-board raise of 3.5% last year, which isn't much, but it's something, while we were simultaneously lowering the county tax mill rate to its lowest level since 2011. So being fiscally responsible while taking care of our employees is the biggest general accomplishment. Again, I guess that could be specific. Specifically, of course, I'd like to see everybody in Columbia County fully covered with high quality, reliable, and affordable broadband.
Did everybody answer that one?
Yep.
All right, that's what I got. Next question directed first to Mr. Nick Everly.
Christina Morris, Town of Lodi. Do you, I hear that you want to continue moving the town forward, and you said that you're getting a lot done. In ways of speaking about repairing roads in our parks and keeping those beautiful in our transfer site, which is a great amenity to the town. Without having a public works director now that's dedicated to those specific areas on a full-time basis, do you have a plan going forward of how you're going to execute that, or do you have plans in the future of opening that position again?
We don't have plans for, so to say, the public works director. We actually have a part-time seasonal worker that we actually, I'm not sure if Shelley released that today or not. I just got an email about it. But what we're going to do is have like a part-time person during the summer months when it's more busy. Obviously the parks are closed during the winter, so you don't really need to have much maintenance work during the winter months. So what we wanted to do is move forward with a part-time person, and we have that already in the works. We also are we have changed the transfer site to being more efficient, I guess, and on the 2 days instead of the 3 days, because it's hard to keep employees to work on Sundays. But yes, we have a plan to have a new person start that role for the summer months, beginning very soon.
Tess, if you
I'm
wanna-
not sure.
Yes.
Can we rephrase that to apply to the county somehow? Or should we-
I
if
think
it's a
that's up
totally-
to you, you can wiggle it out, you're in politics. Figure something out. You got a minute and 15 seconds.
Was it specific to the transfer site? I mean, okay, sorry.
Public Works
I'm
Director.
gonna wiggle something out.
Public Works Director.
Public Works Director.
Well, you're a town, Lodi resident, so what's your opinion about that?
They've contracted that out. There's a
Yeah.
contracted guy now that does the
It's not as if the work's
transfer
not
site,
being
right.
done.
Nick,
Yeah, for the transfer site, we have
and the
building.
parks, cleaning up the parks, they have a contracted guy that now does that.
And then
Tess, you've got a minute and 15. It's your time.
Can I talk about the county solid waste
Sure.
disposal facility?
Sure.
Wiggle that way if you'd like.
Sure.
You'd still have a minute 15 go up.
Thank you. Lots of people have asked me questions about the fire that burned down our recycling facility. Everyone recycles, and everyone wanted to know, what are we going to do? And how does this affect the county's finances? Because that was an expensive facility. And as it turns out, it was fully insured. Not only was the facility fully insured and going to be rebuilt to be a top quality, state-of-the-art, even better than before recycling facility, but the lost revenue from because it burned last May, so it's been, 9 months now of lost revenue, we've already received a check for $250,000 from the insurance company for that. We earn over $1 million a year in revenue from our solid waste processing, and I'm very excited that we'll have an even better and bigger recycling facility than before. We have excellent management of our solid waste disposal, one of the many essential services no one has to think about, no one cares about until the roads don't work or the police don't show up or the trash can doesn't get taken. Yeah.
Tom, your turn to wiggle.
Sure, I'll flex my newly formed politician muscles.
There you go.
I guess as a town of Lodi resident, I guess I would say I'm not having trouble with seeing that work that needs to be done is done. And all the door knocking and talking to people I've been doing, campaigning, I haven't heard anyone particularly complaining about that issue to me. All I could say is from a position of, if I was on the county board, I would see it as my responsibility to be very plugged in to the town, because almost everyone in my district is the town of Lodi. And if I would be asking, members of the board of the town, what can I do to help? Is there something I could do to help? Is there something we could look for the county to provide some kind of assistance or whatever the case may be? But I would see that as kind of my role in something like this, would be to facilitate answers that the town board is looking at.
The next question directed initially to Tess Carr. Yes,
I would just ask, Supervisor
identify
Carr.
yourself.
My name is Liz Groves.
Thanks, Liz.
If you condone supervisors intimidating and trying to harm other supervisors in their private lives if they introduce something at the county board level that they do not agree with or interferes with possibly their own personal dealings.
Supervisors trying to harm and intimidate other supervisors?
Correct.
No, I would not support that.
So the former supervisor who endorsed you, that's exactly what he did. I have the police report here showing it, so you do not condone that, but you accepted his endorsement?
I accepted Adam Hahn's endorsement. If you're referring to Adam Hahn, I reviewed the police report and I saw that it said there was a miscommunication and no charges were brought.
Is this a question or a gotcha?
Yeah.
It's a
It
question.
sounds like a gotcha.
It's a question because, and it was labeled by the officer who was very kind because Supervisor Hahn lied to him and I have a statement proving that, so.
I'm not gonna call anybody a liar tonight.
Tom, you care to comment?
Well, I think it's a pretty obvious answer to say no. I don't condone terrorizing people, attacking people over policy disagreements, even personal disagreements. I mean, I think one of the things that attracted me, frankly, to running for this role was that it's nonpartisan. And it's about providing service to people. It's about collaboration and cooperation. It's not about, you know, I hate you or you hate me or enemies or anything like that. I can't imagine a situation getting to that level. So bottom line, no, wouldn't support that at all. In fact, kind of raises my ire just a bit that someone would, that kind of activity would go on, so no.
Nick?
So I really don't know much about the situation, but of course I wouldn't condone any sort of supervisors intimidating or hopefully threatening any other supervisors. Hopefully they're professional enough that they can figure out their differences through political means instead of absolute intimidation or any sort of threats. It seems very childish. That's all I have.
Thank you, Nick. Next question directed first to Tom Dunn. Yes, sir.
Travis Anderson, the county has a standing rule that guarantees citizens 5 minutes to speak during public comment period. There's been multiple meetings affecting dozens of citizens where they were not allowed their 5 minutes, and that is in direct violation of the standing rules. And I am curious if you find limiting citizens' public input in violation of the standing rules acceptable without specifically the board voting on that, just mandating that by the chair and corporation council.
Sure, I can give you a general response, which is I don't know why someone would have their time limited that they're statutorily have a right to, unless of course they're demonstrating or they're making some sort of commotion that's unacceptable in the meeting room. I'm not sure when you say they're limited or they were cut off by the chairman or something. They were
cut off at 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes, and it was pointed out that the standing rules say 5 minutes, and this happened in multiple meetings. It was to save time.
Yeah, not knowing more than what you're telling me right now about it, I'm not sure why that would be unless there was such a number of people to speak that giving them each 5 minutes was going to make the meeting way too long. That's something I can think of. Otherwise, I mean, I would definitely support people having, the time that they're allowed to have to speak. So I would say, yeah, generally I would be very supportive of that. There would have to be extenuating circumstances, I think, that the board, it would seem to me, would need to agree to beforehand, and that would be explained to the citizens before the meeting that we're having to limit your time because of X, Y, or Z. So,
Nick?
I would have to agree with what Tom said. I mean, you should be given your 5 minutes unless for some strange reason that the whole, it would make the meeting way too large, and it would have to be obviously approved ahead of time. Otherwise, yes, they should be getting their 5 minutes.
Tess?
I would agree that what's in the standing rules should be followed.
Next question directed first to Nick. Yes, sir.
Matt McMorris, Town of Lodi. It's very easy to spend money. It's very easy to spend taxpayer money. Are there some areas that you'd like to look at in the budget where maybe we can cut some taxes and begin to give some relief to people?
So, we actually had during our budget meeting, we actually had we were not really raising the mill rate as much as we could to 2%. And during that meeting, the people that were at the meeting wanted to raise that to 2%, and we had to vote for that to raise it to 2%. That way we get enough taxpayer money for helping save the roads as much as we can. So I understand roads and spending the money for the saving the roads. Obviously you want to be very fiscally responsible on spending your money and where it goes. Wasting money on other things is a very foolish thing, and that's why I feel like this town board has moved things forward. And it does cost money, but I think we've been very fiscally responsible on how the town spends the money of the town or the taxpayers.
Tess?
As far as conserving money was the question, right?
Just where can we spend less?
Where
and
can we
save
spend
taxpayers
less?
money?
Okay, our county's doing a good job with its expenditures and it's balancing its budget every year. We have one of the highest credit ratings in the state of Wisconsin. As I said, we were just able to lower our mill rate while raising employee salaries, and this was in part because of effective negotiation on behalf or on the part of our county leadership. Our county chair and other county leaders went to the state and organized and advocated effectively for increases in shared revenue from the state and its multi-billion-dollar general fund that it has right now to more local governments where it's desperately needed, because we have something called unfunded mandates, services that we are required by state law to provide, yet we are not given the resources from the state to do that. So the increase in shared revenue was a major factor in our success this year. And in every area of my life and work, I prioritize balance when it comes to taxing and spending, and I understand that governments are fundamentally different from profit-based corporations whose job is to grow their bottom line. Unlike corporations, government's job is to deliver services and within taxpayer budget. So we have to bring a balanced approach to that as opposed to saying yes and no automatically to every proposal.
First, I would tell you that not being on the board, I would be talking a little bit from a place of ignorance by trying to give you specific examples.
Understood.
But I can say that one of the missions I would bring to the board is the consistent look for efficiency within everything we do. One of the things I've noticed as I was preparing for this, I went through and read the last couple annual reports of the county, and I read board meeting minutes, different things just to get a feel for issues. And I do think one place we can look to help us is the different kinds of grants and government funding, state and federal government funding that we can possibly apply for and get to help us with certain capital expenditures, certain program expenditures. I'd like to see us maximize what we do in that regard to bring in that kind of funding. But I just want to say one quick thing when you said it's easy to spend taxpayer money. Not when folks like you and me are watching how that money is spent. It shouldn't be easy. And if I have an opportunity to be on the board, it shouldn't be easy. Spending money I'm told to stop. It should only be.
You're already over budget.
There you go. There you go. I think I've got a grant for that. All right.
Next question directed to Tess Carr.
I have a question.
Connie, you're on.
So, I had someone come to my door collecting signatures for, your opponent, and they had mentioned to me that when you were asking the town to match some broadband funds from ARPA funds that the town had gotten, they had said that you had some kind of job offer or something with one of the broadband companies, and this is for all of you. Is there anything, conflict of interest that would have any impact on you serving the community? So, is that true?
I thought this question might come up. I got a call from a Republican friend today who's been involved with county government for decades. And he said, "What is this I'm reading in the paper about your opponent? It sounds like he's trying to make you look on ethical tests. We need to get you back on the board." And what he was referring to is my opponent's responses to the Lodi enterprise that said, quote, "Current partisan politics are gone wrong. That's the reason he's running. And there are, quote, personal agendas." And as a side note, my opponent personally told me he's only running because they twisted my arm and he said, "Tess, it's all about the solar," which sure sounds like a personal agenda to me. My opponent's campaign flyer also refers to, quote, "corporate or special interest influences on the board," implying that the current supervisor, me, is corrupt. And people have been out knocking doors saying other untrue things, like I've applied for jobs after asking for money from those from the companies that I had applied with, and that we need to get rid of the corruption in the current seat. My friends are telling me this, and they're telling me this with frustration and anger, and I'm frustrated by it too. And I think that it is wrong to be dishonest to our residents. Elected officials have a duty to be honest and to cherish the trust that the public has put in them, and that is what I will keep doing.
Thank
So
you.
do you have a conflict of interest?
Did I not say that? I do not.
With Solar or Charter or any other broadband company?
No conflicts of
Okay.
interest, thank you.
Okay.
Tom,
Well, I would first say that absolutely it's the duty of a county board supervisor, a town board supervisor, any elected official to not have conflicts of interest or to recuse themselves in situations where they could possibly have a conflict of interest. I currently work for National Guardian Life Insurance Company, whose major product is pre-need insurance, which is basically funeral expense insurance. I don't believe that will cause a conflict of interest on the county board.
You never know.
However, if something did come up, I can promise all of you, I would be quick to recuse myself. I can't think of anything that's more important to our relationship as an elected official and constituents than my ethics and my honesty with all of you. So I just think that that's one of the most important things you can offer as a person in this role. So.
Yep, I agree.
Nick?
Yeah, if you have a conflict of interest, you should recuse yourself. You're here for the, taxpayers. You're not here for yourself. You should be trying to do as much as you can to listen to the taxpayers and what they have to bring forward. And if it somehow correlates with your job of some sort or any sort of interest that you have, then you should probably recuse yourself, absolutely.
Thank you. And we have time for 2 more questions before closing statements. First directed to Tom Dunn.
I'll go on this. Craig Easy, Town Lodi.
Thank you,
So
Craig.
I've heard the words efficiency and effectiveness thrown around. Which is more important to you and why?
I suppose if I had to balance those two, I would say effectiveness. I would say it's the quality of service that's provided. If you call 911 and it doesn't get there for 5 minutes instead of 2 minutes, as an example, I don't think your first thought would necessarily be that it costs the county $1 more, again, for an example, to provide that service more effectively. But I think they are almost in balance with each other. I mean, I don't think you want 30-second response time at the cost of $100 per taxpayer, that kind of thing. I mean, I do think we do have to find that balance. But if you're asking me, pick one or the other, I guess I would put a little more weight on effectiveness of services. So.
Thank you, Tom. Nick?
I would have to say effectiveness as well. I think effectiveness would be more of a general concept of being a good thing. Efficiency obviously is being efficient, and you're paying of taxpayer dollars. That would be very good, but the effectiveness of whatever you're trying to accomplish would be the most important of the two.
That's efficient. Yes?
I don't really see them in conflict. I guess your question didn't frame them as being in conflict. I guess I would echo what my two other panelists have said about we're delivering essential services. You know, we need our courts to operate. The courts aren't a great example because they're state funded, but we do support them with county funds. We can't run these services without efficiently spending the dollars, and we run better and more services when we're efficient with the dollars. For example, we had a contract that, and I know I keep coming back to broadband, but that's what I do the most work on because that's one of the committees where there's the most work for me to do. We have a consultant contract that just came before us, and we considered awarding it to one company versus keeping the dollars that we'd been awarded. These were grant dollars that were awarded for broadband planning purposes. And I advocated not to go with the first consultant we looked at because I wanted to keep the dollars in-house, basically at the county, train our in-house staff, and then we would be able to use those planning dollars more efficiently and effectively going. I'm not answering this well at all. But I think once you've been able to save the dollars by spending efficiently, then you're able to spend on more services. So you become more effective by being efficient. How was that for a good politician answer? That sounded really bad coming out.
We're supposed to stay neutral on this.
Which is more important?
Which is more important? Well, if I had to say, then effectiveness. I mean, I don't see them as being one more important than the other, really.
Okay. Final question, one more question before closing statements. Directed to Nick first. Travis, you're on.
Do you think that converting farmland to commercial scale solar and wind energy is a good thing for Columbia County?
Converting farmland to solar, I personally do not think it would be a very good thing. It's obviously green energy, but I don't think the technology is fully there. Some of the aspects of things, granted this is more, I think, more of a county question, but our farmland is extremely important for our food, and converting that all to solar, I think, is obviously not a very good way to go about getting electricity. My question, I guess, would be for the county at some point is, what are we gonna do with our power plant in Portage when it goes out in a couple of years? But solar, I don't think it's a full answer, no, absolutely not.
Tess?
I do not think we should replace farmland with solar, and fortunately that is not a choice before us, nor is it even a question that applies at the town or county level, because renewable energy development in the state of Wisconsin is regulated almost entirely by the state. The county can have some influence in the matter. I don't know that the towns would have the ability to have much influence because it comes in the conditional use permits that are granted by the counties for driveways and other sort of auxiliary elements of solar development. The current solar development planned for Columbia County the last time I checked was 4% of all available agricultural land. So there is no question that our ag land will be ruined and that we won't be able to feed our residents. On the other hand, one of the solar projects alone is going to generate 300 megawatts, enough to power 90,000 homes, and we have about 24,000 homes in Columbia County. So this is an important replacement for our power plant when it shuts down, and not only does it provide power, it provides revenue, not just to the farmers who are leasing to those companies, but to the municipal and county governments, because there is such a thing as utility tax revenue, and we get $5,000 per megawatt of energy generated, distributed to the municipalities and counties in tax revenue for renewable energy development. Thank you.
15 seconds ago, thank you. Power outage, Tom?
Sure, I'm not a believer in replacing large swaths of agricultural land with solar panels. I don't think it makes a great deal of sense, but I do think solar power is an important element of our ongoing energy needs, And I do think it makes sense to think about potentially locating solar panels in places where the land has already been used for some sort of industrial or other kind of use. I'm not sure what Alliant is gonna do with Columbia. I do know they've announced their CO2 battery project. I don't know how much any of you know about that. It'll be the first installation of this CO2 battery in North America. I think it's a very exciting opportunity for the county. I'd love to talk to anyone more about that would like to talk about it. But I do think some solar energy is going to be important. But again, both the long-range plans, the 2030 plans for both the county and the town of Lodi, specifically call out preserving farmland, preserving the rural nature of the county. So I think we can find some kind of balance between augmenting our energy needs and not placing large amounts of solar arrays on significant agricultural land.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you. That concludes the question and answer portion of the forum, and thank you for your participation. We'll now move to closing statements. The candidates have 2 minutes to make a closing statement.
2 minutes. 2 minutes?
It says 90 seconds.
I was lying. 90 seconds. I say they have 90, but sometimes they take 2 minutes if you want to be true. So anyhow, Tess, you have 90 seconds for your closing statement. You are first.
Okay, once again, I'm filling up all 90.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming. I hope I've conveyed enthusiasm and appreciation for being able to serve my neighbors. And I also want to emphasize the seriousness with which I take this job. The public well-being and public tax dollars are obviously a huge responsibility. And that is why I care so much about facts and reason and fairness. Anybody can make mistakes, which is why I try to be open to learning all facts about a situation. For example, to be honest, I opposed the Lodi-Hillenbrand rezone request, which many of you in this room are familiar with, until I attended every meeting at which it was discussed and met multiple times with county department leadership as well as town planning leadership to gain a bigger understanding. Once I've gathered facts, I try to reasonably apply them to the situation at hand. For example, when several county board supervisors last year chose to ignore our legal advisors and propose a moratorium on solar development within Columbia County, I argued that this would lead to unnecessary and expensive lawsuits against the county taxpayers that we would certainly lose. Fortunately, a majority of supervisors agreed and the vote for the illegal moratorium failed, saving us all from wasting those tax dollars. And finally, I try to be as fair as possible to maximize benefits to all parties. For example, beyond the apparent zero-sum struggle of our legal advisors telling we must, under state law, allow solar development versus local residents trying to totally prohibit it, I believe we should pursue other positive options to make solar development less obnoxious and more beneficial to local communities. We have opportunities to enter into agreements and pass ordinances that provide for panel setbacks, visual tree plantings, road repair, law school tax revenue, and all kinds of benefits that we have left sitting on the table with these companies so far. I hope to try to use facts, reason, and fairness to best serve our residents in the next term. Sorry to go over.
Told you that 2-minute thing was.
You were right. I heard you say that, and it subconsciously gave me permission.
Okay. Tom, do your best on the 90.
I will do my best.
Okay, thank you.
Just want to say this is a really brand new experience for me. Maybe you've seen a few of my signs out there. It's a little tough for me sometimes to see your name out there in front of people and stuff. But as I mentioned in my opening, Columbia County is very important to me. I love living here. My life from the time I was born is wrapped up in this county. And I'd like to do everything I can to help this county now and in the future. I've been out knocking doors, putting flyers in people's doors, shaking hands, and really have enjoyed it. Have enjoyed meeting people, talking to them, even folks that don't really want to talk very much to me. I've enjoyed at least having the conversation with them, and I'm learning a tremendous amount about what folks like you, what's important to you in your life, and what you're looking for out of the government, and what you expect from your elected officials. And one thing I would come back to and promise you is that if I'm elected to this office, I'll be open, honest, transparent, available, and will represent you to the best of my ability. I just would like to add too that I think an important part of this role is working with the county, or not county, connecting with the town and working with the town and trying to be a hand in glove with what the interests of the town are, translating to the county level. Thank you.
Nick?
I want to first start by thanking everybody for having me here. Thank you for coming. The town board meetings are pretty quiet, so you guys are always welcome to come. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to be here. I feel very green on this, and I'm trying to my very best to learn, and whatever you guys have for any sort of advice, any sort of information that you guys want, I will be more than happy. I have a very open mind and all the policies that we make and move forward with. I feel like the town, and like I said, is doing a very good job in moving the town forward. I think it's Scott back there is the one that stopped into the town Tuesday and was referencing how the town pays 44% of the school district's money, and I feel like the town should be involved more in the school district and how they fund the school, because that's our taxpayer money, and I think that is an important thing, that we are very efficient and effective on spending that money. And thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the closing statements today. Again, would like to thank and commend our candidates, Tom Dunn, Tess Carr, and Nick Everly. Why don't we give them a hand?
You brought this to my attention. I could have made a mistake. I know, that's hard for me to admit. But I think Jim Hillenbrand is running against Nick, and Jan Klingman is running against Bill File. But you'll see that on the ballot.
Well,
Even if I'm wrong or I'm right, you'll see it on the ballot when you vote.
I agree.
When you vote on April 2nd.
Yes.
Just as a reminder, again, next Wednesday, the school board candidate forum will be held in conjunction